So with that said, why don't we get into, our questions that we have for you, our mighty guests, and we're going to start with you, Eboni, because Eboni, you are leading an actual event. You're making sure that people are there for John Lewis Day. And so we want to just start by you telling our audience something about yourself. They need to know who you are. Tell them a little bit about your background and what brought you to this moment in time.
Okay. Well, that's pretty easy. Well, as you mentioned before, I am a fellow, so getting involved is part of what we do. So I've been an advocate and a community builder for, my entire life. I was born and raised in Miami, and I've seen firsthand what happens when our people do not participate in the civic process, how policies are made without us, how power is too often concentrated in places that don't reflect our communities. So for over a decade, I guess I can say, I've been involved with youth programming events and social equity, from serving on the local NAACP, Miami-Dade branch, and now I'm currently a board member of BLAM, which is the Black Liberation Alliance Movement, which is a new organization that does voter registration here in South Florida. So in short, that's about me.
Woo! That's a lot. That is so impressive. I know people are going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Tell people why you chose to become a leader of the July 17th John Lewis National Day of Action, Good Trouble Lives On event. Why did you decide to do that event?
I work with young people every day. I even have a daughter now. So I know the urgency when it comes to protecting rights, voting rights, civic access, and truth-telling in education, okay? So when it comes to John Lewis Day, I've learned that John Lewis, his lifelong legacy was based on justice and democracy, and he had this characteristics of moral courage, which has been the underlying activism and what we're taught in organizations like TJC. So hosting an event in his honor, honoring his legacy, and my ancestors who fought for dignity, it only makes sense to do something like this to mobilize the community for a better life.
Woo, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. Tell us why it is important to host an event in Miami, Florida. Now, everybody's watching this madness going on with this concentration camp that's being built in the Everglades that they're celebrating the cruelty of. Why is Miami so important as a center to make sure that there's a John Lewis event there?
So my roots are very, very deep in Florida. My great-grandmother was born here in South Florida. So I've heard the stories from my family members about the political crossfires, experiences of their own rights being stripped away from them here in Miami-Dade County. And what I've grown to see as a young adult is that what happens in Miami usually sets the tone for the entire state. So it's important to have a direct impact or an activation in Miami where the community can be involved with, so we can be educated and be aware of legislation that affects the entire state. So it starts at home. When you hear it starts at home, home is Miami. What happens in Miami happens in the state of Florida. So it's important to get involved here.
All right, now. And before we move, because I want to definitely get Dr. Kaye and Dr. Karen into this conversation, but before we do that, tell people what your event's going to look like, what you expect from it, and what you've been saying to Gen Z and millennials about being involved. Tell us about it.
So I'm not sure how anybody else's John Lewis Day is going to be, But I can tell you that ours, you can expect to be seen, inspired, and activated. Some may call it being woke. We will have speakers, performances, and youth-led activities. So we speak about millennials and Gen Zs. We also have Gen Alphas involved. So we're going to have a street sweep where we're cleaning up and beautifying the local area. We're having a community feeding to serve hot meals.
Wow.
And we're going to have a candlelit virgil at the end, amongst, of course, speakers. So that's what the event's going to look like. It's an all-day activity. So I encourage everyone to come. Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. Come on now.
All right, Daryl. Daryl, did you hear that? They're going to feed the people. They're going to sweep and clean the community. Did you hear what she's doing, Daryl?
Yeah, Eboni, that just is really incredible, and I think it's really a wonderful program that you're putting together down there. The Gen Alphas that you're finding, why are you focusing on Gen Alphas, and where are you finding these Gen Alphas to participate?
So the Gen Alphas are usually our nieces and our nephews, people who we already have access to, right? So, yes. And there's this saying, everybody wants to be outside, but you outside doing what work? So we're putting the young people to work.
All right. Dr. Kaye, you just heard the voice of one of the amazing leaders, TJC alumni, and you're getting ready, the African American Policy Forums, getting ready to have a Democracy Defenders week of training for young people. Tell folks about that. And I really, really want everybody to understand that they can attend, right? If there's an opportunity for them to be participants. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I appreciate you. And thank you to my sister colleague for laying out how do we celebrate, uplift, remember, and stand in the space of John Lewis. I think that is something that we should all adopt as the work we have going forward. As Barbara might have said, I am the Special Projects Coordinator for the African American Policy Forum that was co-founded by none other than Kimberly Crenshaw. You know her work from critical race theory and intersectionality. And so I work with her where we lay out the work that needs to happen at this moment, the fierce urgency of now. We have our Democracy Defenders. It's kind of critical race theory summer school part 1. Taking place in Nashville, Tennessee. We're in Nashville because Nashville, according to Representative Justin Jones, one of the Justins that they tried to kick out, and thankfully the community rallied, and he's like, I am not going without a fight. He is someone that quotes John Lewis on a regular basis. He said, I'm here getting in good trouble in Tennessee, but Nashville is the tip of the spear. As you notice, sister, it happens in Florida. We know that this experiment around the collapse of democracy and keeping us oppressed, it is happening in the South. And Nashville is one of their test grounds for how to keep Black people underpaid, underfed, and oppressed. So we'll be there from the 20th of July until the 26th in person. Reach out to us at aapf.org. If you are near Nashville, if you're connected to Nashville, if you want to come to the tip of the spear in Nashville, we've got a place for you. Now, you might be thinking, well, I can't get to Nashville, Dr. Kaye. It's only in a couple of weeks. No worries. We got you covered because coming up the week of August 10th, we're going to do Critical Race Theory Summer School Part 2, and it's going to be virtual. So you can join online wherever you are. So we have an in-person portion and we have a virtual portion because we believe that we are at a point where people not only have to be ready to fight, but they have to be trained and organized to fight. It's not enough to attack the elephant from all different parts. We need to come together and eat this beast one piece at a time, doing it together. And that's the work we're doing this summer.
Wow. And I'm sure that, doing when we talk about racial fascism, people say, what in the world is that? Can you explain why this particular summer camp is going to be so focused on anti-authoritarianism, fighting hypocrisy, oligarchy? Why is this subject so important within the critical race theory frame?
Thank you so much for that question, Barbara. I want to note, just as we start, to think about something that Langston Hughes said. Langston Hughes said, you don't have to tell Black people what fascism is. We experience it. We know that fascism is nothing but a monster that comes out of capitalist parents, which is what Walter Rodney said and how Europe underdeveloped Africa. And we know Toni Morrison said fascism doesn't happen in one moment. It's one step. To get to the final solution, you need a first solution, a second solution, and that we need to understand that we have to watch the solutions. The thing about Black folks, man, we know how to see when the storm is coming. Barbara, my grandmother used to say, I know the storm is coming because my hip is hurting. She's like, that's how I can tell the weather based upon how my hip is hurting. Black folks, our hips have been hurting for a long time. We knew a long time ago and down in our bones that fascism in this particular instance was going to come. We are in the spirit of Fred Hampton, who said, look, nothing is more important than stopping fascism because fascism will stop us all. Racial fascism at this moment has taken the season of political oppression, the season where white supremacy is digging their feet down deeper into the soil and then racializing that and then adding in, economic oppression on top of that. People think that, they're just coming after our brown brothers and sisters. And I'm telling people, you have to look at all the cards on the table. When they start building things that they are calling, quote, alligator Alcatraz, which we really need to call it alligator Auschwitz. We need to be really clear that once they put $450 billion into building up ICE, once they remove all the brown people, who are they putting there but us? Who else is the other group? We have to understand that for capitalism and white supremacy and fascism to survive, there has to be an other, and the other is built on racial oppression. It's brown folks and Black folks. They are coming for all of us. And what we have to do is we have to be able to connect the dots for people so that Black folks won't say, well, I'm not an immigrant. This is not my struggle. Dude, this has been your struggle since 1619. Do not let them lie to you and have you believe that you are safe because you are not safe, particularly in this season where over 200,000 Black women have lost their jobs. And when they started cutting jobs, they were coming for us then, that they're completely disassembling the Black middle class. So if we can't eat because we're not getting paid, then how are we going to feed our families? That's where another level of racial labor oppression comes in. They didn't mind ending slavery because they had sharecropping. They didn't mind ending sharecropping because they had the mass industrial prison complex. White folks want to stay on top, and to stay on top, then brown and Black folks have to stay on the bottom.
Daryl, one thing that we're so pleased about this John Lewis Day of Action coming up is that we have all those 1,200 events are being led by Black-led organizations, Native American nations. They're being led by Latinos. They're being led by white Americans. They're being led by folks, young people. They're being led by people with disabilities. They're being led by people who are LGBTQIA. They're being led by all kinds of people because John Lewis taught us that we got to have the beloved community. We got to be all in this together. And if we think somehow that something evil is only going to happen to one person and not to all of us, then we are terribly mistaken. Right, Daryl?
Oh, absolutely, Barbara. And, it's the whole, multicultural aspect of it that John Lewis stood for. And, we recently had an opportunity to speak to a group of people, and we asked the question, could you imagine if John Lewis was with us today and this big, bad bill or beautiful bill, whatever you want to call it, had been passed, what he, as the conscience of the Congress, would say? And that's what, we need to be so certain that we're focused on July the 17th and every day, that we need to be the conscience of the Congress. We don't have John Lewis with us on earth anymore to fight those fights. But we now have to get into the streets ourselves. We've got to educate ourselves. We've got to be certain, as Dr. Kaye was just saying, that that if you have the ability to get to Nashville to this forum, that you need to get there so that you can get the education. You can learn what's happening. Dr. Kaye, I so appreciate what all is going on in Nashville and with AAPF. Can you share with people, if they are trying to get more information about the summer camp. How do they get more information?
Thank you for that question. I appreciate that because we want people to walk away with as much information as possible.
Yes.
They can simply go to